Despite the record-breaking opening weekend for Batman Returns in June 1992, the film suffered a severe drop-off in ticket sales during the following weeks, partly due to backlash from parent groups complaining that the film was too dark and scary for small children. The critical reaction was not much better. While the film was praised for its performances, production design, and visual effects, the story and the perceived lack of fun was highlighted. The studio Warner Brothers decided that a change in direction was needed both in front of and behind the camera. Would this change be for better or worse? Batman Forever was directed by Joel Schumacher and starred Val Kilmer, Tommy Lee Jones, Jim Carrey, Nicole Kidman, and Chris O'Donnell. The story concerns Batman trying to stop the psychotic villain Two-Face from wreaking havoc on Gotham City. Meanwhile, Bruce Wayne gets involved with the psychiatrist Dr. Chase Meridian, who is obsessed with Batman. As Two-Face teams up with the crazed villain the Riddler to extract information from all the minds in the city, Bruce Wayne adopts an orphaned acrobat named Dick Grayson, who eventually becomes Batman's sidekick, Robin. After Batman Returns faced criticism for its dark and gothic tone, Warner Brothers sought to make the next installment more family-friendly and commercially viable. Warner Brothers and Tim Burton, who directed the first two Batman films, mutually agreed to part ways, but Burton stayed on as producer for the new film. Warner Brothers selected director Joel Schumacher to take over the director's chair. Schumacher had directed several popular and critically acclaimed films, including St. Elmo's Fire, The Lost Boys, and The Client. Schumacher's vision for the film was more aligned with Warner Brothers' new direction. He aimed to create a film that was colourful, light-hearted, and more reminiscent of the 1960s TV version of Batman, which he believed would appeal to a broader audience. Husband and wife screenwriting duo Lee and Janet Scott Batchelor were hired to write the script. Warner Brothers had lost a bidding war for their spec script for an earlier project titled Smoke and Mirrors to Disney's Hollywood Pictures. The project ultimately fell through, and Warner Brothers offered the Batchelors several of their film properties to write. Being familiar with the Batman comics from their childhood, the Batchelors chose to work on the next Batman film as their next project. In a meeting with Burton, they agreed that the key element of Batman is his duality. It's not just that Batman is Bruce Wayne. The screenplay underwent several revisions, with Akiva Goldsman ultimately penning the final script. The story introduced new characters, including the enigmatic Edward Nygma, also known as the Riddler, and the vengeful Harvey Dent, also known as Two-Face. Schumacher and Goldsman aimed to balance the dark elements inherent in Batman's story with a more dynamic and accessible tone, which involved infusing the script with humour, action, and vibrant set pieces. Casting for Batman Forever involved considerable deliberation and changes. After Michael Keaton, who played Batman Bruce Wayne in the previous two films, declined to return due to the franchise's change in direction, the role of Batman was recast. Several high-profile actors at the time were considered to be the new Batman, including William Baldwin, Keanu Reeves, Daniel Day-Lewis, and Johnny Depp. However, Joel Schumacher had been extremely impressed by Val Kilmer's performance as Doc Holliday in the Western epic Tombstone, and he was his top choice for Batman. Kilmer had started his big screen career in the comedy spoof Top Secret, but rose to stardom due to his role as Iceman in the Tom Cruise blockbuster Top Gun. Billy D. Williams played the part of Harvey Dent in the original Batman, and was contracted to appear in a possible sequel as the character's alter ego, Two-Face. However, with Schumacher taking over directing the series, he ultimately chose to recast the role with Tommy Lee Jones instead.
This deal is getting worse all the time.
Many actors such as Robin Williams and John Malkovich were considered for the role of the film's second villain, Riddler. However, the early 90s saw the rise to superstardom of comedian Jim Carrey. Carrey had started out as a regular on Saturday Night Live, but scored a hat-trick of massive hits in 1994 with Ace Ventura: Pet Detective, Dumb and Dumber, and The Mask. Carrey's exaggerated acting style and talent for physical comedy made him an ideal fit for the Riddler, and he was paid $20 million to star in the movie. To play the character Robin, Marlon Wayans had been cast in the role for Batman Returns, but was ultimately deleted from the movie. Again, Joel Schumacher decided to recast the role, and several actors such as Alan Cumming, Toby Stephens, and Ewan McGregor were considered, but Schumacher chose up-and-coming star Chris O'Donnell. Before Michael Keaton decided not to return as Batman for the third film, the character of Chase Meridian, Batman's love interest, had been cast with actress Renee Russo. However, with Keaton's departure, the character was recast with Nicole Kidman. Kidman had first gained international recognition for her role in the Australian thriller Dead Can, before taking on high-profile roles in the likes of Days of Thunder, Malice, and Far and Away, in which she managed to put on a much more convincing Irish accent than Tom Cruise.
She's got an awfully large chest to be going to church.
Oh, Shannon, all chests are equal in the eyes of the Lord.
Filming on Batman Forever began on September 24th, 1994. A hallmark of Batman Forever's cinematography is its bold use of lighting and colour. Cinematographer Stephen Goldblatt employed a vibrant and eclectic colour palette that contrasted sharply with the darker, more subdued tones of Burton's films. Neon lights, vivid colours, and high-contrast lighting became central to the film's visual identity. Gotham City was bathed in greens, pinks, purples, and blues, creating a surreal, almost dreamlike environment. The use of neon lighting was particularly notable in the portrayal of Gotham's nightlife. Streets and buildings glowed with neon signs and lights, lending an otherworldly quality to the city. This approach not only highlighted the film's shift in tone, but also gave Gotham a unique, almost comic book-like aesthetic that emphasized the fantastical elements of the Batman universe. Dutch angles were frequently employed to create a sense of unease and disorientation, especially in scenes involving the film's villains, Riddler and Two-Face. This technique, characterized by tilting the camera to create a diagonal horizontal line, added to the chaotic and unpredictable nature of these characters. This type of filming was clearly inspired by the 60s Batman show. Designed by costume designer Ingrid Ferran and sculptor Jose Fernandez, the new Batsuit was more streamlined and muscular, emphasizing a heroic and athletic physique. The suit was crafted from a combination of foam latex and rubber, allowing for greater flexibility and a more defined silhouette. One of the most notable features of the Batsuit was the inclusion of anatomical muscle sculpting. The suit was designed to look like a second skin, with sculpted muscles and defined contours that highlighted Batman's physical prowess. This design choice was meant to convey strength and invulnerability, aligning with the film's more action-oriented and adventurous tone. While the Batsuit was designed to be visually impressive, it also needed to be functional for the numerous action sequences in the film. The foam latex and rubber materials provided some flexibility, but the suit was still quite restrictive, posing challenges for Val Kilmer during filming. Movement in the suit, particularly during fight scenes, required careful choreography and adjustments to accommodate its stiffness. The cowl, or mask, was another essential component of the Batsuit. In Batman Forever, the cowl was more angular and sleek, designed to complement the overall aesthetic of the suit. However, it also limited Kilmer's head movement, a common issue with Batman costumes in film. Batman wears an experimental Batsuit at the climax. One of the notable additions to this Batsuit was the introduction of the sonar modification. This feature allowed Batman to use advanced technology to navigate in complete darkness, reflecting the film's emphasis on high-tech solutions and innovation. The sonar lenses, which could drop down over Batman's eyes, were a striking visual element and added a futuristic touch to the suit.
It's the car, right? Chicks love the car.
The new Batmobile was designed by Tim Flattery and crafted to reflect the film's shift towards a more colourful and stylized visual approach. The vehicle was a radical departure from the darker, more utilitarian design seen in Tim Burton's films. It featured a sleek, elongated body with an array of ornate details that made it stand out. One of the most striking aspects of the design was the prominent use of blue neon lighting. The Batmobile's body was lined with neon accents that glowed in the dark, giving it an almost futuristic and otherworldly appearance. The front of the vehicle was adorned with a large bat-shaped fin, while the rear featured exaggerated tail fins, reminiscent of classic 1950s cars, yet with a modern twist. The intricate design included a ribbed, organic texture that made the Batmobile look almost alive, as if it were a creature of the night. This biological aesthetic was further enhanced by the car's aggressive stance and aerodynamic curves, which conveyed both speed and power. The mid-1990s was a period of rapid advancement in digital effects, and Batman Forever capitalized on these developments. Digital effects were used to enhance scenes involving explosions, environmental effects, and some of the more fantastical elements of the film, such as the Riddler's mind control device. CGI was employed to create effects that were difficult or impossible to achieve with practical techniques alone. Schumacher and Kilmer clashed during the making of the film. Schumacher described Kilmer as childish and impossible, reporting that he fought with various crewmen and refused to speak to Schumacher for 2 weeks after the director told him to stop being rude. Schumacher also mentioned Tommy Lee Jones as a source of trouble, saying, "Jim Carrey was a gentleman, and Tommy Lee was threatened by him. I'm tired of defending overpaid, overprivileged actors. I pray I don't work with them again." In a 2014 interview, Carrey acknowledged that Jones was not friendly to him, and recounted an incident where Jones found him off set during production and told him, "I hate you. I really don't like you. I cannot sanction your buffoonery."
Spare my life for just a few moments.
Filming on Batman Forever ended on March 5th, 1995. Director Joel Schumacher decided to give his version of Batman a new musical sound by replacing previous composer Danny Elfman with Elliot Goldenthal. Goldenthal had risen to prominence first for his unique and original score to Alien 3, and gained further acclaim for his scores to Demolition Man and Interview with the Vampire. One of the defining features of Goldenthal's score is the main theme for Batman. This theme is both heroic and ominous, encapsulating the dual nature of the character. The theme's bold brass and sweeping strings convey Batman's strength and heroism, while darker undertones reflect his internal struggles in the shadowy world he inhabits. This complexity in the music mirrors the complexity of Batman himself, a character perpetually caught between his quest for justice and his own personal demons. Goldenthal's work also shines in his thematic treatment of the film's villains, Two-Face and the Riddler. Each villain is given a distinct musical identity that enhances their on-screen presence. For Two-Face, Goldenthal employs discordant and chaotic motifs that reflect the character's fractured psyche and unpredictability. In contrast, Riddler's theme is whimsical and erratic, capturing his manic energy and obsession with puzzles. These villain themes are not just background music, but are integral to the storytelling, providing insight into the characters' minds and motivations. While overall, I prefer Danny Elfman's Batman scores, Goldenthal's Batman Forever music is a terrific piece of work. It got a great 2 CD expansion from La La Land Records in 2012. Like the previous two movies, duality is a major theme in Batman Forever. In fact, it's more prominent here than ever before. The film examines Bruce's struggle to reconcile his dual identities. He grapples with the guilt and trauma of his parents' murder and his role as Gotham's vigilante. This internal conflict is mirrored in the villains Two-Face and the Riddler, who each have their own battles with duality. Two-Face, formerly District Attorney Harvey Dent, is torn between his lawful past and his vengeful present. His split personality is a literal representation of this theme. Edward Nygma battles his desire for recognition and his descent into madness. Obsession is also a major theme. It drives the actions of several characters. Edward Nygma's fixation on Bruce Wayne leads him to become the Riddler, obsessed with outsmarting and surpassing his idol. Similarly, Two-Face is consumed by his desire for revenge against Batman, whom he blames for his disfigurement. Bruce Wayne himself is obsessed with his mission as Batman, often at the expense of his personal life and relationships. This theme of obsession highlights the destructive potential of fixations, pushing characters to extreme and often destructive behaviour. Dick Grayson is also driven by obsession, his parents killed by Two-Face. He can't think of anything else except his thirst for vengeance. Finally, Dr. Chase Meridian pursues her own obsession with Batman, not realizing that Bruce Wayne, the one who needs her help to reconcile his traumatic childhood memories coming to the surface, is Batman. The theme of redemption and transformation is central to Bruce Wayne's character arc. Throughout the film, Bruce grapples with his past and the question of whether he can lead a normal life while still being Batman. His relationship with Dr. Chase Meridian helps him confront his fears and traumas, offering him a path to emotional healing and personal redemption. The film suggests that redemption is possible through self-reflection and confronting one's inner demons. My personal thoughts on Batman Forever are that, despite its reputation, especially in the wake of Batman and Robin, is that it's a fun and much more enjoyable experience than Batman Returns. While I like Returns, it's a movie where I feel Batman wasn't really a prominent character in the story. Batman Forever is what's referred to these days as a soft reboot. While there are certain aspects and actors of the previous movies which are carried over, such as Pat Hingle as Commissioner Gordon and Michael Gough as Alfred, it seems to be set in a different continuity from the Tim Burton movies. Joel Schumacher seems to have been influenced more by the 60s Batman TV series than the early comics. Forever is much more colourful than the Burton movies, and there are lots of Dutch angles which were a common feature of the TV series. Performances, not just from the actors playing the villains, are completely over the top. Ed Begley Jr., who plays Edward Nygma's boss, overacts almost as widely as Jim Carrey does. And who can forget the line delivery of the gentleman who plays the security guard rescued by Batman in the beginning?
Oh no! It's boiling acid!
However, despite the campy reputation of the Schumacher Batman films, it's interesting that there is some real psychological depth and dark themes that are explored here. Batman's origins are explored in more detail here than they were in the original film, even if not to the extent that they would be in Batman Begins 10 years later, but it was a step in the right direction. Val Kilmer, despite his reputation for being a difficult actor to work with, delivers a solid performance as both Bruce Wayne and Batman. He's physically intimidating enough that you can believe that this guy could go out every night beating up criminals, and he seems more he's playing the debonair playboy aspect of Bruce Wayne that Michael Keaton seemed to avoid. What I do really like is how he portrays Batman as more of a hero than the somewhat bloodthirsty Michael Keaton version. He doesn't actually kill anybody. Well, not directly anyway. Kilmer has a decent Batman voice, but it is kind of odd that he keeps the same one for when he's playing Bruce Wayne. Kilmer also brings a sense of vulnerability to the character during his scenes with Nicole Kidman's Chase Meridian, as he tries to reconcile his feelings for her and the dark memories of his childhood. His scenes with Chris O'Donnell's Robin, as he resists at first the idea of taking on a partner to fight crime, are also surprisingly, in retrospect, very well written and performed. Kilmer and O'Donnell have great brotherly chemistry here that was sadly missing between the characters in Batman and Robin due to Kilmer's departure. It's a shame, because if Kilmer had stayed on and if the following film had a half-decent script, we might have really got something here. As for the villains, Jim Carrey is really funny as Riddler, and has clearly been inspired by Frank Gorshin's interpretation in the 60s TV series. The way that man can contort his body like a cartoon is unreal. Tommy Lee Jones' Two-Face is a real disappointment though. He just plays it way too over the top, like an exaggerated version of the Joker. Two-Face is a much more layered and subtle villain than that in the original comics, and particularly in the animated series. It's not entirely Jones' fault, as he's a really good actor, and just doing what he's been directed to do by Schumacher. However, if I had to sum up his performance with two words, they would be unsanctioned buffoonery. It wouldn't be until The Dark Knight 13 years later that we got a more faithful interpretation of this tragic character. As far as Batmobiles go, like Kilmer himself, this is one of the more underrated ones. While I prefer the Keaton Batmobile, this one has a cool biomechanical look to it that I really like. The fins are a little bit too big though. As for Robin, I think Chris O'Donnell is fine here, and much better than he was in the following film. Even if he is clearly too old to be a minor that would be given a guardian after his parents die, there's only 6 years between him and Kilmer. One thing Schumacher and his writers managed to do very well is juggle multiple characters and storylines without seeming overstuffed. This is probably one of the reasons he was chosen to direct, given that he had experience directing movies with large ensemble casts, like St. Elmo's Fire and Flatliners. Overall, Batman Forever is a hugely enjoyable Batman adventure that breathed new life into the franchise, at least temporarily. I know many fans prefer the overall dark tone of the Tim Burton movies, but I always enjoy watching this one. On its release in June 1995, Batman Forever was hyped with the usual by now huge marketing campaign. The film was accompanied by toys, video games, McDonald's tie-ins, and U2 released the hit single Hold Me, Thrill Me, Kiss Me that appeared on the film's soundtrack. Critically, Batman Forever received mixed reviews. The visual style, characterized by neon lights and exaggerated set designs, was both a highlight and a point of contention. Some appreciated the unique and bold artistic choices, while others felt it deviated too far from the darker, more serious tone established in Burton's original film. Pete Travers of Rolling Stone wrote, Batman Forever still gets in its licks. There's no fun machine this summer that packs more surprises. Brian Lowry believed, one does have to question the logic behind adding nipples to the hard rubber batsuit. Whose idea was that supposed to be anyway? Alfred's? Despite its mixed critical reception, audiences turned out in droves to greet the film. The film opened at number 1 at the box office and set a new record for the series with an opening weekend of 52 million, taking Jurassic Park's record for having the highest opening weekend gross of all time. Unlike Batman Returns, there was no backlash from family audiences this time, and the film continued to perform well for the rest of its theatrical run, eventually grossing 336 million on a 100 million budget. Despite this huge success, the friction between Val Kilmer and Joel Schumacher had left its mark, and Kilmer eventually decided not to reprise his role. Schumacher clearly didn't lose any sleep over this, famously saying, There are 2 things I will never do in this lifetime. I will never climb Mount Everest, and I will never work with Val Kilmer ever again. However, with Warner Brothers pleased with the huge financial success of Batman Forever, quickly greenlit a sequel that they wanted to come out in 2 years' time. Despite the loss of Kilmer, confidence was high, and the next film could only be bigger and better. Right? Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, then please give it a like. Consider subscribing if you haven't done so already. Share it with your friends, click the bell for notifications, and I'll see you in the next part of this series. Bye for now.